pretty level, something went wrong, rolling off the power. And we're back down. Good afternoon everyone, this is Alex from Anthelion Helicopters and welcome back to another helicopter training video in the R44 here. The last video we introduced traffic patterns and today we're going to start, as promised, delving more into it. Today's going to be all about normal approach and normal landing and normal takeoff. So we're going to do the whole lot, all normal, although there's nothing really normal about it, it just is what we call it. We're doing a normal takeoff we call it a standard takeoff. The main reason is to keep us out of the height velocity diagram and the most safest profile for taking off as possible. And the obvious question is, what's the height velocity diagram? And the height velocity diagram, which I'm sure you all know, is a combination of altitude and airspeed. That gives us the best possible chance of doing a safe landing or an aborted takeoff, shall we say, should our engine fail at any time during that departure. It may not be pretty, but it gives us the best survivability chance, and it's always illustrated in the pilot operating handbook. Anyway, we will talk more about that later, but without further ado, let's get flying. Let's have the motors here. So today is, like we said, we're going to be doing normal takeoffs and then around for a normal approach. So the big thing about the takeoff is making sure this normal approach profile that we're out of the height velocity diagram. Again, we sort of explained a little bit about that. And everything with it is done on a reason to give you the best possible chance to land the aircraft should you get a single engine helicopter, should you get an engine failure. So very, very important as far as possible to have the skids absolutely straight during that profile. May not be possible, of course, in a true crosswind takeoff, but we'll tackle that in later videos. But for today, we will have everything straight to give ourselves the best possible chance. And I'll actually demonstrate, why that is as well with a practice full of hover auto, as it were, when we're moving forward, which will give you guys an idea of why it's important to have the skids absolutely level. And in this profile as well, everything is under control, and there's no rushing this. It's all about finesse. We're not Airwolf and we're bunging the nose forward and then going off again. It looks cool, but the helicopter actually has a horizontal profile as much as possible when we're taking off. Again, just so if you've got the nose pointed all the way forward, then the chances of you rolling the aircraft are magnified somewhat. Should you have any sort of complication. So the skids are designed to slide, and the more horizontal profile you can have on them on takeoff, the more chance you've got of that happening. Again, we'll demonstrate that in a second here. So hover power is takeoff power up. All you guys have heard that a million different times, and it's true. Again, we're trying to teach finesse here. No big armfuls of collective, because that requires armfuls of other controls at the same time. Big inputs from everything else. Small input from the collective means small inputs from everything else at the same time. Anticipation, our main rotor is going to go through ETL. Our tail rotor is going to go through ETL, and they will both have effects. You'll get the nose bobbing up when the main rotor goes through ETL, and you'll get the tail rotor jinking slightly when the tail rotor goes through ETL. And obviously, in different types of aircraft, they feel pretty different as well. So, but for the R44 and the R22, they're pretty distinctive, and they happen pretty separately. Remember, ETL is somewhere between 16 and 24 knots. Again, depends really what the wind is doing at the time, but it's a good rough guide, and you'll feel it by those series of vibrations, and suddenly, like you said, the nose popping up and the tail jinking, which basically means they are outrunning all of the vortices and becoming far more efficient. And for a set pitch angle, you're getting a lot more oomph out of them, which is why things start improving, and you get a lot more potential with them. So obviously, we're going to just do a quick clearing turn here to start with. I think I've covered most of my bases with a normal takeoff profile. But up to about 25, 30 knots, you're going pretty level and low. And then as soon as you get through about 30 knots, then we're going to bring the nose absolutely level, and we'll start to climb out. And that should keep us as far as possible out of the shaded area of the high velocity diagram. So quick checks, cursory checks, warning lights out, gauges in the green, pressure and temperature is good. Always do your checks. Always check the area, make sure your situational awareness is good, and then we are ready to call the tower and ready to get going. Long-range helicopter 4. Hotel Sierra, pad 4, left close traffic.
4 Hotel Sierra, pad 4, clear for takeoff.
Clear for takeoff, 4 Hotel Sierra. Okay, so hover power is takeoff power. So right now we're at about 22 inches. I am not going to pull any more. We're just going to ease forward on a cycle, keep my eyes on the horizon, keeping your direction control with the pedals. Easing forward. Now the nose is going to dip, so don't panic. The nose will dip a little bit, don't worry. As much as possible, we need to get some airspeed here. There you go, there it goes. There's a slight jink coming through ETL. Slight jink with a tail. All good. 30 knots. Level. Climb out. Now we can start pulling up some power. Again, we want to get away from the ground as quickly as possible now that we've gone through 30 knots. And now we're climbing up around about 600-700 feet a minute. Again, staying out of that shaded area of the high velocity diagram and climbing up away from the ground as quickly as possible. Remember, altitude and airspeed are our friends, especially when we're on takeout, on a normal departure. So the quicker you can get them, the better, as long as you stay out of that shaded area of the HV diagram. Now, once we're up, we're just going to go around in the traffic pattern here. Onto our downwind leg. And here we are coming down. So now we're going to go for a normal approach. So normal approach profile, like I introduced last time, you know, it's the most common thing that you'll do, and it's, again, trying to stay out of the areas of the HV diagram as much as kind of possible. It will vary from aircraft to aircraft, and in this aircraft it's somewhere between the compass and somewhere between the top of the console. You know, it's not an exact science. With their roundabout trim strings is a good place to start. Clear left, clear right. Fundamental principle of all of this is everything you do should be under control. There's no rush to do anything that you do. If you find yourself rushing, you haven't set yourself up properly, and you probably forgot about something or left it last minute. Remember, the most planning you can do to set yourself up for the approach, the better. So on base, I was coming around about 50-55 knots. Here I am. I'm around about 300 feet right now, just intercepting my approach profile. And I'm using my collective to control that angle of descent. And my cyclic is going to really dictate how fast I get there. But they're really used in conjunction with each other and just keeping my directional control with my pedals. Just trying to keep a decent speed again. Remember, if an engine, God forbid, it does quit right now, at least I've got a little bit of airspeed still to try and dump the nose forward and do a flare to put us on the ground. As I'm coming into the pad here, all under control, eyes are outside, not looking at the pad anymore, using my peripheral vision, anticipating that I'm going to come through ETL, so be ready on those pedals especially. As the pad starts to slip underneath you, just use your peripheral vision. There comes ETL as you start going through it. So anticipating that, we're starting to pull up the collective. Be ready with the pedals, be mindful of the windsock, especially with that left pedal. Level that shit about, get those skids level, and we are down. If you want to take it to the ground, we could do, but we don't need to. So it's just both worth bearing in mind that normal approach, not all appropriate in all circumstances, but it is the most fundamental, basic approach that you'll probably do most of the time. And big takeaways from it are just make sure it is under control, that you try and maintain a compromise airspeed, shall we say, that gives you don't want to come in too fast, but you don't want to come in too slow. So I always say between 40 and 50 knots is a good place to start. Really, it depends on the aircraft as well. And anticipate as much as you can. Remember, so much of this is in the setup. If you come hoofing around off your downwind in an R44 at 90 knots and then try to set yourself up from a normal approach, chances are you will overshoot it and end up in an aborted landing and a go-around situation. We're here in Long Beach is actually quite difficult because we have runway 30 right in front of us. So you get yourself in a load of problems, which obviously is not good. So a lot of it is anticipation. You are using that base leg, and in some ways, the last part of the downwind to set yourself up for that approach. Slow yourself up early. Get the power where you want it early. Look at the wind early. Anticipate what's going to happen before it happens so that you're not caught out. Of course, some things you won't be able to predict, but a lot of things you can anticipate and you can plan for so that you have time and control on that final approach to make it happen. If you have to do an aborted approach, which we'll talk about in later videos when we do pinnacle and confined areas, when we have exits, then you'll have time to do that too, but that's a whole different ballgame. So we're just going to show you right now why it's important to have a level takeoff profile when you're taking off. And that's really, you know, we're just going to demonstrate here, almost like a hybrid hover auto, of why it's so important to do that and to have hover power being takeoff power to keep that profile as horizontal as possible. And it will make sense. All right. You ready, Ryan?
Ready?
Okay. So here we are, hover power, takeoff power, everything's looking normal, you know, and all I'm going to do is ease her forward like I'm taking off. Here we are, looking like we're going to take off, you know, pretty level, something went wrong, rolling off the power. And we're back down. Now, had dumped my nose forward like you see in some videos and the TV commercials or whatever it may be, and some, you know, Airwolf as it were, and the engine had quit or the tail had gone wrong or something had gone wrong, my nose would have been forward, my skids could have dug into the ground, I could have rolled forward. If my nose hadn't been level as well, or had been twisted to one side, I could have caught one of the skids if it wasn't uneven ground. You saw we went off into the dirt here a little bit, which is fine. But if that wasn't absolutely level, it was skewed to one side, there's a chance that it could catch and roll over as well. So kind of a graphic illustration, hopefully it makes sense of why it's important to have hover power being takeoff power and your attitude of the aircraft being as level as possible on that takeoff roll. The best chance of safely getting this aircraft down, walking away without damage to the aircraft, damage to yourself. Hopefully it makes sense, and that's why hover power is takeoff power. All right, we'll roll it back up. There we go, there is our short training video today on normal takeoffs and round to normal approaches, normal landings. We've gone over, you know, all the sort of subtle nuances of the normal takeoff, including why hover power being takeoff power, why we do that, you know, obviously illustrated by when we just did an aborted takeoff there and did it's almost like a running on hover auto there to illustrate why those skids need to be as level as possible to give you the best possible chance. And we also, you know, I did a takeoff there how you shouldn't do it, which is dump the nose forward and off we go, because you look at that profile, much harder to land safely. Stay out of the HV diagram, we talked about that a little bit as well, just making sure that, again, we're out of those shaded areas on your HV diagram, and if in doubt, always double check on your pilot operated handbook or rotorcraft flying manual, whichever one you want to call it. And then we came around for the normal approach, which again, you know, remember setup, and setup are most important there. Always set yourself up for success. Make sure you're under control, make sure you're at a good speed coming in, and that you know your approach angle and know how to manipulate the controls to achieve it. As you get closer to the ground, anticipate ETL, anticipate what the wind's going to do to you at the same time. Don't stare at the pad, otherwise you will land short. You know, as you pass through ETL, make sure you've got full control of the aircraft. Always use a peripheral vision to look at the pad when you come down. Thank you again for watching. Next time we will look at max performance takeoffs and steep approaches. So everyone fly safe out there, and we'll see you next time for another training video with Anthelion Helicopters.